8,
You're watching The
7,
Experience, Comic Culture, and
6,
Sales.
5,
Streaming live daily to
4,
Facebook, YouTube,
3,
Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
So an elderly old man, kind of redundant elderly old, an elderly man owned a large farm for several years and had a large pond at the far end of the property. Now it was big enough for swimming, and he decided he'd make a little recreation area there. He put up some picnic tables, a little horseshoe court, and he planted some fruit trees, just a fun little area. Now one evening, several months later, the farmer decides to visit his pond and pick some of the fruit. So he grabs himself a large bucket and makes his way across the property. As he nears the pond, he hears laughter and joyous shouting, obviously people having fun. And as he gets closer, he sees that it's several young women and they're skinny dipping in the pond. Now he's a gentleman, so he makes sure that, he announces that he's going to be coming in and that he knows they're there. And one of the women shouts to him, "We're not coming out until you leave." Now the old man shook his head, saying, "I didn't come down here to watch you ladies swim or make you get out naked." He holds the bucket up and says, "I'm just here to feed the crocodiles." Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Dan Wickline, oddly enough. Sorry, I have to send this real quick. All right. So good to see you guys. Good to be back. It's been a little while, but it's good to see you. Jay, Kenneth, Eddie, and of course, Triple B. Also, Derek Neiman is a new member, so hello to him. And all right, let's get things started. We got a lot of news to cover, and then we're going to talk about the Marvels. Did it really deserve all the hatred that it got? Having finally watched it, I have thoughts on it. So, and it's well broken down. But let's get into the pop culture news. And it starts with a big report yesterday, and the Hollywood Reporter talks about how Marvel is quietly retooling amid what they call superhero fatigue. And that is such a interesting term that people are throwing out there. And anytime that people don't go see a superhero movie, they say, "Oh, it's superhero fatigue." Anytime they go, well, it's like, okay, they went. But anyway, I don't think the article actually proves that there is or isn't superhero fatigue. It just kind of accepts that there is, just like it kind of puts out there as a fact that Marvel has been doing poorly lately. And I think there are easy arguments to make, but that you could also, they're subjective. For some people, they've loved everything Marvel's done lately. Others, they haven't. So whether there's superhero fatigue or whether Marvel is spiraling the drain really is subjective at this point. Now, the article starts talking about how the Peyton Reed film Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was the first of a year's worth of missteps for the studio. But they go on to say that February has been very good for them. Deadpool and Wolverine trailer was very well received and was hugely viewed. The announcement for the Fantastic Four on Valentine's Day was also very well received, with most people liking the casting. I think even Moss Bacharach and Vanessa Kirby have been universally accepted. Some people question whether or not Pedro Pascal was a good choice for Reed Richards, and other people think Joseph Quinn may not be a good enough actor for Johnny Storm. But I think they're just basing it off of his appearance in Stranger Things and forget that he's been in a ton of other things as well. He's not a brand new actor. So, and of course, the X-Men 97 trailer has become the most viewed animated trailer for Disney Plus ever. So I think a lot of people are very encouraged by this month. Also, America's Stretchy Stepdad. There you go. In other positive news, the reshoots for Agatha Darkhold Diaries ended up taking just 1 day instead of the 5 that were allocated, and everyone seems to be very happy with the series, which will be the only live action series to come out this year besides Echo. Now, in the movie side, a few writers have been brought on to polish up some scripts, and again, these are both seen as very positive moves. Eric Pearson, who worked on Thor Ragnarok and Black Widow, is coming in to just clean up the Fantastic Four script. And then Joanna Callow, who is the showrunner on The Bear, is working on the script for Thunderbolts. These are both looked at as positive, like I said. It's also said the studio is looking for characters and actors that can kind of lead the universe forward since the departure of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. But the biggest change talked about in the article, and again, I don't know how legit this is, being that this is the Hollywood Reporter, you want to take it seriously. You want to say, okay, these guys are on, they know what they're talking about. But this has been one that's been talked about, not talked about, and talked about, and not talked about. And according to them, the bad guy for the multiverse saga, the linchpin character of Kang the Conqueror, is going to be faded out. Now, there's been talk about recasting with a lot of different good named actors being brought in to replace Jonathan Majors since his conviction. But this article, again, focuses on them moving away from the character altogether, and they've even said that Avengers Kang Dynasty is going to get a new name. Now, this has been said before, and then Marvel came out and said listed their slate of movies, and it was still Avengers Kang Dynasty. So take this with kind of a grain of salt, but the word is that they actually started the idea of moving away from Kang after the underperformance of Quantumania, and that's the article's term, underperformance, because the film grossed $476 million, which for a lot of movies would be successful. So just saying that maybe we've got the bar a little high for Marvel at this point. Now, the other move has to do with television side, which has the studio changing their approach and giving more power to showrunners and actually having showrunners on the series instead of just having lead writers and executive producers kind of forcing everything. But, the article refers to the critical failure of Secret Invasion. It's believed that the executive producers had too much influence previously and that the show needs to be more structured like a TV series rather than trying to work like multi-part films. And while no one is said to be calling this a reboot or of any kind, they are considered a retooling, trying to follow Bob Iger's call for more quality rather than quantity, and pacing things out a bit more so that people will actually start missing the MCU between projects instead of there just constantly being new material. That said, they're still looking to put out 4 films in 2025, and they have a backlog of live action stuff they have to get out. So a lot of contradictory stuff in that article. But all right. I heard a theory that Secret Invasion started as Captain Marvel 2. I've heard something similar to that. And then they decided to go the direction they did. And I know I didn't hate Secret Invasion. That's the thing, is that there hasn't been any project in the new, there's one that I didn't like. And that's Thor Love and Thunder. Everything else I thought were degrees of okay, good, fine, great. You know, none of them were, I don't think Secret Invasion was fantastic, but I thought it had some good moments and some stuff I enjoyed and some stuff that I thought, they could have worked better on that. But this is what the reports are saying. All right, let's get over to other news, because it's not all Marvel, though I think we bounce back to Marvel at the end of this. The Boys will be back this summer. Prime Video has revealed that the 4th season of the drama will premiere June 13th. 3 episodes will drop on that day, followed by a new episode each week, with the season finale set for Thursday, July 18th. The 8-episode season will stream exclusively, of course, on Prime Video in more than 240 countries and territories worldwide. So what is season 4 going to be? Well, in season 4, the world is on the brink. Victoria Newman is closer than ever to the Oval Office and under the thumb of Homelander, who is consolidating his power. Butcher, who only has months to live at this point, has lost Becca's son and his job as the boys' leader. The rest of the team are fed up with his lies. With the stakes higher than ever, they have to find a way to work together and save the world before it's too late. Season 4 will also welcome Susan Hayward, Valerie Curry, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan to the cast. That's interesting. They brought in Jensen Ackles last season, now Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who played father and son on Supernatural. The Boys and Gen V have been amazing. I haven't finished Gen V yet. I have to get back to that. So, all right, moving over to DC. When JD's got a picture to go with this one. With the production of Superman Legacy ramping up in Atlanta, directors and writer-coder DC boss James Gunn posted a photo of the cast on Instagram. There it is. He wrote, after the table read with the Superman cast, we have Eve, Mr. Terrific, Superman, Clark, Otis, Lex. Then there's producer Peter Safran, Jimmy, Metamorpho, Lois, Hawkgirl, James Gunn, Guy, and the Engineer. All together for the first time. What a wonderful day. Now, Superman Legacy is the first feature title in the new Gunn and Peter Safran run for DC Universe, which Safran earlier explained is not an origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. His kindness in a world that thinks of he's kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. The interesting thing to take away from this, and JD, put the picture back up for a second, please. This is a rather small cast. If you think about the stuff we've heard, we heard that there was going to be the Authority. We heard that maybe we heard a lot of different things. But what we have here is part of the Justice Society, Guy, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, and Mr. Terrific. We have the Engineer from the Authority. We have Lex Luthor, his assistant Otis, and Eve Tessmacher. We've got Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Superman. And that's it. There's no other members of the Authority. There's no other members of the Justice Society. And when you think about it, this is the table read. So unless someone else is reading the parts that haven't been cast yet, which is very likely, this seems like it's going to be a smaller project than a lot of people feared. That, when they started naming, these are the members of Secret Justice Society, stuff like that, you got the feeling that it was going to be this huge film. And, how much time would you really have for Superman? But if this is the cast or close to the cast, it's kind of small when you think about it. So, okay, thank you, JD. We're going to go on to another DC story, and that is on Threads. Gunn was asked about Batman the Brave and the Bold reboot by a Threads user who asked if Brave and the Bold had to wait until after Matt Reeves makes his third Batman movie. Because Reeves' Batman, the Batman, is thought of as a trilogy. Well, Gunn just simply said no. Now, Batman Part 2 is slated for October 25th. And if they're going to be run concurrently, which I've always thought they were going to, then we could start talking about Batman Brave and the Bold probably as early as a 2026 or 2027 film, allowing them to get their Batman out there after getting their Superman out there. Now, Gunn did note in a post that the initial schedule may have changed a bit since their initial announcements a year ago. He says some things have shifted around, some projects now earlier, others later, and other new projects are being developed. Like I said from the beginning, we're going to put things in production based on when we have a great script and nothing else. And luckily, we had some great scripts take us by surprise. So there we go. We're getting shifting around on the schedule, but it sounds like it's all very positive stuff. JD says, ooh, I bet Warner Brothers loves the idea of a Batman movie at both Christmas and summer. Yeah, though the Batman Part 2 is actually October. So that wouldn't be Christmas or summer. That would be Halloween. No updates on Vox Machina season 3 yet. So I will keep an ear out for that, Ed. Hey, Kenneth. All right. So one more news story. And this is having to do with Mark Ruffalo, who keeps popping up in the news, and it's all because he's doing them press for Poor Things, that they keep asking him other questions. And, you know, you ask Mark Ruffalo questions, you never know what kind of answer you're going to get. He is known for being a spoiler guy. But in this one, it's talking about the fact that, you know, the MCU has had one standalone Hulk movie, that, of course, being 2008's The Incredible Hulk. And the problem, of course, was the distribution rights. Now, in The Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner was played by Ed Norton, and then who was eventually replaced with Mark Ruffalo, though insiders know that Marvel and the director wanted Mark Ruffalo, and it was actually Universal that insisted on Ed Norton. So the question is, will there be another Incredible Hulk standalone film? So while Mark Ruffalo was speaking to GQ magazine, he did bring that up. And he said that he is on board for a Hulk movie if Marvel Studios ever greenlit one, no pun intended. He said, I'd love to do a standalone Hulk. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. See, he points out that the cost of creating the CG created character like that is very high, even as the tech has improved. He says, it's very expensive. You did a whole movie, which is why they use the Hulk so sparingly. I priced myself out of it. Now, I think they could mix it up again, put him back as Banner, stuff like that. Maybe turn Hulk back to Savage. So, you know, give that feeling again. But I think they still have to work out the deal with Universal, because I'm not necessarily sure they ever got that deal done. So, all right, guys, that will be our first break. We will come back, and we're going to talk about the Marvels. So we'll be right back.
Symphonic verses, Nocturne's romance. A song of romanticized darkness, dreaming death by sleep.
My name is Mark Weiss, and I am the founder and president of an organization called Comic Books for Kids. 6 years ago this month, we embarked on a journey of passion and heart. Our goal was to make a difference for children in hospitals and cancer centers. We want to thank our friends for allowing us their support and for providing us with the means to make so many happy with their gracious give to us.
According to a statistic that I just made up, people spend 4 hours a day changing the television channel. People who watch The Experience don't do that. Save yourself a ton of time by tuning into The Experience and enjoying our new original programming 7 days a week. And then tell your friends. Think about the money they could save on batteries in the remote alone just by tuning into The Experience. Find out more by scanning the QR code below.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Remember to stick around today. We've got What's in the Box, and we have Sketch Up tonight. There's not a Geek Chat. They won't be doing the show this week, but they will be back next week. And I hope you guys had a chance to see Jam Comics this morning, which is our new Thursday morning show. So lots of good stuff here going on in The Experience. Plus, tomorrow night, we have the original art experience with Nick Barucci, and Friday Night Live from Comics Unlimited in Tennessee. Stick around for all of that. And I believe we have Jam Comics again on Saturday. So I haven't quite figured out what their schedule is yet. We'll have to get that worked out. All right. Today, we're going to talk about the Marvels and try to figure out if the film deserved all the online hatred it received or not. But to look at this film, you kind of have to look at the 2019 Captain Marvel to see if perhaps that the expectations for the new film may have been set too high. Now, this film, in a lot of ways, had the perfect storm going for it. It was the release between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, when everybody was desperate for information about what was going to happen. Some of the audience's favorite characters had just disappeared into dust, and they wanted to understand why. And then, there's a little teaser of Captain Marvel, and sure enough, the next movie to come out is Captain Marvel. Well, and it stars Samuel L. Jackson and this new character that was just introduced in the post-credit scene. So, of course, people went to go see it in droves. It got the numbers like Infinity War and Endgame did. But it wasn't because it was a new property. It wasn't because there was this huge excitement for the character of Captain Marvel. It was because it was connected to these two huge movies. So then we have to look at how it was received outside of the online hatred generated by specific groups that don't want a female-led superhero movie. So the critical reaction to the first Captain Marvel movie was a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. That means the critics actually mostly liked it, 80%, almost 80%, where the audience score was only 45%. Now, the audience score is really hard to judge because everybody gets to add to the audience score. So all the people who really didn't want a Captain Marvel movie, and we knew all the vitriol that was out there, they could go out there and make posts saying it's the worst movie ever without ever having to actually seen the movie, you know? So it's hard to say that 45% is legit. Now, when we get to 2, there isn't as much hatred. They've changed some of the ways they do things. So that number is probably a little more accurate now. But back then, people could hate bomb, hate review movies that they didn't like existed, whether they saw them or not. And, you know, these disingenuous reviews really mess up the numbers. So, okay, then where do we judge how the movie did? Well, we can look at the box office, and it did 1.131 billion worldwide. But again, that has to be taken with a grain of salt because of being sandwiched between the 2 Avengers films. So let's move away from the numbers that normally lets us decide if a movie's good or not. Slipknot says, I love female-led superhero movies. I even went to see the Razzie Awards winning Catwoman. Nice. Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with any of them. I've actually seen all of them. I saw Captain Marvel in the theater. I saw Black Widow on the night it opened on Disney Plus. I've watched Miss Marvel. I watched She-Hulk, and I've liked all of them. So I am definitely not in the group of haters. All right, so let's look at the actual critiques, specific critiques to the film, with the biggest being a lot of people not liking Brie Larson in the lead role. Now, if you're not familiar with her other work, including her Oscar, BAFTA, and Golden Globe Award-winning role in The Room, then you might think the actress is stiff or bad. But you have to remember that she was playing a person taken from her home planet without her memories, then forced into an alien culture, lied to, and taught to suppress her emotions at all costs. That was the character. This reminds me a bit of Hayden Christensen when he was in the prequels. Now, a lot of people came out and saying that Hayden was horrible. They called him Mannequin Skywalker. They didn't like his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker. But then later on, they discovered he can act. And now he's a beloved member of the Star Wars family. People get excited that he's returning for Darth Vader in a couple different projects, for the Obi-Wan series and for Ahsoka. So what happened? Well, you have to remember that Christensen was directed to act in a certain way by George Lucas and the directors of the movies and stuff, because that's how they wanted it. Now, you have to kind of take all that into consideration when you're talking about an actress. If you follow Brie Larson on social media, or you watch some of these behind-the-scenes stuff, anything like that, you'll see that she is not the character Captain Marvel that we saw in the first movie. It's not who she is, and it's not how she is when she acts. She's been in a lot of other things that she's done very well. But the film was directed and written by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, who were still relatively new. They had only done a couple small films, and this was what Marvel did. They hired them like they do for new directors and stuff, and sometimes it works out great, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that Boden and Fleck probably wanted her to lean into the non-emotional, the way the character was in the movie. And she had to, she did what was told. Ed says he kind of had to play Anakin that way. When you have a character going from extremely good to extremely bad, there has to be issues with characters for that to be believable. Very true. That's another good reason. So overall, the first movie, I thought Captain Marvel was a decent to good film. I was fine with Brie Larson as Carol Danvers. I really liked the addition of Ben Mendelsohn. I thought he was just a real joy bringing in. I liked the twist where the Skrulls were actually the good, the oppressed, and the Kree were the bad guys. Seeing Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg come back was great. I love the interaction between Jackson and Danvers, or Fury and Danvers. I also like the introduction of Maria and Monica Rambeau. I liked the villain turn by Jude Law. I think the only thing that really didn't hit well with me was casting Annette Bening as Marvell. And that's not because, I'm against, that kind of stuff, or it's when you grow up with a character for a long time, you kind of want them to be that character. The original Captain Marvel was a male character, and that is what's in my mind. And it's hard for a lot of people when it's someone that they grew up with that, they want to see it like that. And I get diversity casting, and I get that a lot of the characters were all straight white males. I mean, that's what Marvel put out. And that was at the time. But, you still kind of want to see the characters look and act like you saw them growing up. So, yeah, I had a little problem with that, but I got past it. And I thought Annette Bening was a good choice, especially as a Supreme Intelligence. And I think if the film hadn't been sandwiched between the Avengers, it probably would have done about 400,000 or 500,000. That's about where I think that movie would have done, which would have been good. It would have made its money back and everything. So let me see. What have I missed here so far? Slip says there should be more female superhero movies, but as long as they're directed by people who know what they're doing, like James Cameron, Denis Villeneuve, and Catherine Bigelow. Yeah. Jay says, I like her as an actress. Maybe it's because it was comedic roles that made her feel off to me. I unjustly wanted her to be her character from 21 Jump Street and Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, I can see that. Nita says the Rotten Tomatoes rating is now 82%. Yeah, for the second movie. We're going to talk about that when we get to it. It says the one thing that really irritated me was how they had Fury lose his eye. That took a lot away from the comic character who was saving lives. And yeah. And sometimes they'll do stuff like that for the joke. And I always think of it this way. The MCU and the Marvel comic universe are two different things. And just because the MCU decides to do it differently doesn't take away from the character in the comics that we grew up and love. Just like Marvell being Wendy Lawson instead of Wendell Lawson it doesn't change the comics. And that's how I get past that. So yeah, I want to see him look like, the comic character that I grew up with, but still, it doesn't change. The comic's still there. The graphic novels are still there. The Death of Captain Marvel is still one of the best graphic novels of all time. So, Nita says Brie Larson is hated because of her speech at banishing grown men not watching Disney movies. Yeah, bashing. Ed says, I think the prequels are great. Hayden did a great job, which is kind of a universal opinion now, but at the time it wasn't. JD says, I didn't even know he lost his eye in the comics. I thought the Flerken scratch was hilarious. Yeah. See, for new people, it's like that. I grew up in the Green Hornet. My dad was a huge Green Hornet fan. When I got to write the Green Hornet, I wrote my dad into the story, brought him back in a follow-up story. So my dad is now technically canon in the Green Hornet universe. That means a lot to me. I hated the Seth Rogen film because I felt that it was so far away from the Green Hornet that it was an insult. My brother, who is not a superhero guy, didn't read comics growing up, doesn't really watch those kind of movies. He's only liked two of them so far. One being Deadpool, the original Deadpool, not the second. The other being the Green Hornet. So it's just a different audience, Slip says, would Battle Angel Alita be considered a superhero movie? I think that may be one of the very best examples of a female-led superhero movie. I think it's close enough to the genre, yeah. So I haven't had a chance to watch it, but it seems like I should. So I will see if I can get that. All right, let's go into the sequel, shall we? Now, going into the sequel, this not only continues Carol Danvers' story, but it brings in, of course, Aman Vellani as Kamala Khan, or Miss Marvel, and Tiona Paris as a grown-up Monica Rambeau. It basically continues Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and WandaVision all at once, while sort of ignoring Secret Invasion. You know, and the critical and audience response to the film is interesting, where the critics gave it a 62%. The audience score on this one, as Nita pointed out, is 82%, which basically kind of flipped, where the critics were stronger on the original and the audience was weaker. Now it's turned around, which is normal for a Marvel movie, that the critics mostly like it, or, you know, slightly higher average, and then the audience tends to love it because the audience is not normally as critical as the people who get paid to be, and the people that feel like they have to have critiques, negativity, to have any kind of sense of actual insight. You know, you can review a movie without being negative about it, and it's okay. I just hope they learn that. But the box office, of course, didn't do nearly as well. The film made $206 million worldwide, and that's a huge drop from the $1.13 billion. But one of the things that never gets mentioned when people are talking about the dip at the box office is the huge change to the China market. Since the pandemic, the Chinese box office tends to come in at like 10 to 20% of where it had been before COVID. The people in China just aren't going back to the theaters like they were prior to the pandemic. The original Captain Marvel made $154 million in China. The Marvels made $15 million. It made 10%. So if it had done the same or close to the same in China, we'd be looking at over a $350 million worldwide movie. And would people still be calling that, a flop? I don't know. Probably when it comes to comparing it to the original film, but I don't think you can compare it because it was done pre-pandemic, and the movie-going audience is not the same anymore. People don't just go to the movies to go out on Friday nights anymore. You know, when was the last time you went to a movie because you wanted just to go to the theater and pick your movie by what's playing rather than going out to see a specific movie? That has changed a lot. You know, people, it's more appointment viewing now. It's something, Dune 2 is coming out. I have to go see Dune 2. Okay, this came out. I can wait for that on the streaming service. It's different now. And anytime we're comparing the box office numbers post-pandemic to pre-pandemic, you're comparing apples and oranges. They're just not the same anymore. You know? So did the film underperform in the theaters? Yes. But there's a lot of factors. Like I said, the audience haven't returned to theaters like they had previously, and you see everything is down. There are a handful of movies that do extremely well. Barbie had a buzz to it. Oppenheimer, Top Gun Maverick, Avatar. But outside of those films, everything else is down. So I think we have to start adjusting our thoughts down as well. Let's see, what else did I miss in the chat? Deadpool is good. Green Hornet is a crime against film. I agree. These people that hate on movies with female leads make no sense. It's not a new concept. Look at the Alien franchise, for example, and that was 40 years ago. Exactly. Slip says, I absolutely love Deadpool 1 and 2, both great accomplishments in comics book movie making. Yeah, the difference, though, between Deadpool 1 and 2 is I think Deadpool 1 the jokes were much more focused on the general audience, where there was a lot more inside jokes in Deadpool 2. And I think you lost some of your general audience with that. But overall, I love both movies. Jay says it's not like the movies are Andy Sedaris films. They have some substance. Exactly. I think you mean Amy Sedaris. I'd rather watch Women Over Men. Yeah, good choice. Deadpool and Wolverine are going to blow our minds. I was so stoked when the trailer dropped, and I'm excited to see what they have planned. Me too. Hey, Phil. Good to see you. I'm wondering if Deadpool and Wolverine can make 1.5 billion or even higher. I don't think it's going to break $1 billion. I think it's going to be about a 700 million movie, because I just think that's what the box office is now. Lorena Villa says, I used to manage a theater for over 10 years. Now I refuse to go to any theater. I'd rather watch at home. And I think a lot of people are that way. And Jay says, Slipknot, that would be awesome. I just want it to be a great movie, and I think it will be. Yep. All right, so let's get into the actual movie. Oh, Andy Sedaris did the boobs and guns. Okay. I thought you were talking about Amy Sedaris. But so I sat down this week to watch the film for the first time with Lisa. So when we do that, it's a lot of fun because I get two opinions. I get a diehard comic book fan who grew up reading comics since he was 5. And then I get a nerdy girl who didn't read comics but is into that kind of culture. So she's kind of the audience. She's a little behind on some of the Marvel movies, but she understands the characters and gets into the movies. So it's an interesting being able to see both those takes. Now, I wanted to like the film because, I grew up with comics. I get excited when I see characters from those comics on the big screen. Now, Lisa was trying to give the film a chance because she had been inundated with all the negativity online about it. So she had seen take after take about how bad the movie was and how all of these posts had these clickbait titles that were filled with negativity, like, "Oh, is the Marvel's going to kill Marvel Studios? Is it the worst movie they ever made?" Da da da. And most of the coverage had those kind of headlines. They spoke about the film being a disaster before it was even released. Plus, Lisa wasn't a huge fan of the first movie, and she couldn't get into Miss Marvel, but she loved WandaVision. So we had very different mindsets going in. We both enjoyed the movie, but it has flaws, as most every movie does. Lisa felt that some of the drama and the dialogue felt a bit too easily resolved, and I agree with that. I know the film was cut considerably, and I wonder if some of the tension might be what ended up on the cutting room floor. Now, we really liked the character interaction, the chemistry from the three leads and how they figured out how to work together, to the introduction of bringing the Khan family in and the interactions with Nick Fury. Now, the overall plot, it wasn't a brilliant plot, but it made sense to the MCU. We get to find out what Kamala's bangle is, and we get to see how all those jump points were made that we had been introduced to in Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that. So here we had the MCU moving forward because of the plot. Plus, what did Carol do after she found out she had been lied to? How did she deal with Supreme Intelligence and all that? And why hadn't she been back to Earth? We get answers to all of that. And I think that's great. We also learn more about Flurkins, how they breed. Yeah. And we find out why Monica was upset with Carol. Now, the Flurkins did lead to a funny and adorable scene. There's a lot of people saying the villain was underdeveloped and that some of their plot choices were questionable. And I'm pretty sure you can say that for about 80% of Marvel movies. That's pretty standard. That's just like, check the box. Yeah, we should have spent more time on the villain. There was also the inclusion of Valkyrie, which felt a bit forced and out of place, but it was also kind of fun seeing her again, so I don't mind it. But I really would like to see the deleted footage to see if there's a slightly better paced film in there somewhere. Now, Iman Vellani just continues to shine. And I think Carol is easier to like here because we get to see her flaws and her vulnerabilities. She's more of a three-dimensional character than what she was in the first movie. Now, Monica needs more to do in the MCU. I think she's great. And I love seeing the lighter side of Fury, especially after Secret Invasion. But the film has its flaws, and I find myself, the baby Flurkin scene. Did we need that when earlier in the film, Valkyrie shows up and uses the Rainbow Bridge to teleport a bunch of Skrulls away? So couldn't she have just shown up on the space station and done the same thing? Did we need to have the Flurkin scene? I needed the Flurkin scene because I thought it was awesome. But I felt that Valkyrie's inclusion and what she did kind of takes away from the ending. Also, Aladna. It would be nice to know what happened to Aladna after the team made a hasty retreat. Did they get their water back? Are they still around? Is she still technically married? Yep. It is basically the Spaceball plot when they're stealing the air and water and stuff from other planets. So, but since we're speaking of Aladna, the number one complaint I saw online was the musical number. And people saying it ruined the movie. I can't believe they put it in there. It made no sense. It just totally took me out of the film. And I look at it this way. They established that there's a race of beings in the Marvel Universe that communicate through song instead of speech or written or drawings or stuff like that. Is that plausible? I don't see why it wouldn't be. I could see language developing in different ways. I thought it was kind of a neat concept. It's not the strangest concept ever. And they did one number. They sang one song, and then when the prince started to sing, she stopped him and gave one of the best lines in the movie. So it's not like they showed up to Aladna and suddenly it turned into The Greatest Showman or Hamilton. It was one song. I enjoyed the scene. I'm glad Marvel took the chance. Lisa was even stunned on how short the scene was compared to all of the complaining online about it. So it's one song, people. One. Now, we didn't see the movie in the theater because of my health over the last few months, not because we didn't want to. And I think we would have enjoyed it in the theater, probably a little more, the big screen and stuff like that. But here's some interesting information to add to the debate whether the film deserved the online hate. The Marvels was the top watched movie upon release on Disney+, and it's the most watched film in the catalog, passing Eternals and Moana. Now, if you didn't realize, Eternals was watched like crazy on Disney+. So all the people that, hated on the Eternals, well, most people didn't see it. And maybe it was because of the online hate again. But when they got to Disney Plus, a lot of people watched it. And they watched the whole thing. They didn't get 10 minutes in and shut it off. So, but the Marvels has now surpassed that in a very short time, which shows me that a lot of people stayed away from the theater, but they still wanted to see the movie. So, and if you look online now, the different social media stuff, you're going to find a plethora of posts with people proclaiming their enjoyment of the film now that they've seen it on streaming service and they're not understanding all the previous vitriol. Now, I took to social media and made pretty much that post saying that we really loved or liked the movie. It was a lot of fun, and I don't understand all the hate. This turned out to be one of my most popular posts I've done in a while. It had over 12,000 views, 400 plus likes, 50 plus shares, and almost 50 comments. And on X, that's quite an accomplishment because that site is so screwed up, it's ridiculous. And a lot of the comments were people supporting what I said, like this, or exactly, or that's how I feel. And then there were a handful that just seemed really out of place. There were some that questioned my ability to judge movies, some that questioned my manhood, said that I really liked, or I must have liked, named 2 movies. I'd never seen the other one, but that I must have liked Xanadu. And I will tell you, when I was 7 and I saw Xanadu, the one time I did, it was a singing roller skating movie with lots of bright lights, and I liked it very much. Gene Kelly, Michael Beck, Olivia Newton-John, who wouldn't like that when you're 7? But I also like The Greatest Showman, and I like Hamilton, and every 4th of July, I watch 1776 and Hamilton. There's nothing wrong with liking musicals. And, like I said, and one person seemed to disqualify my opinion for having written the Karma graphic novel. I wrote erotic romance about a supermodel who is expanding her life and getting into a relationship. And somehow I'm not allowed to then critique a Marvel movie. But that's the kind of stuff that's out there. So putting this in perspective, I wouldn't call this a great movie. It had issues, but it also had fun, and it moved the MCU forward. Do I want Marvel to make better films? Of course I do. But it feels like the bar has been set at incredible blockbuster or utter crap with no room in between. If you get a chance to watch The Assembled for this film, which is already on Disney+, you will see a cast and crew that earnestly set out to make a good movie and put their heart and soul into it. Now, movies fall into ranges. Movies fall into a range, and for every Schindler's List, there's a Showgirls. But there's also a Major League 2, and there's, other movies in to varying degrees of good, great, and indifferent. Maybe we shouldn't paint every film with extreme brushes and allow some just to be decent. I mean, does the Marvel deserve to be talked about in the same way that Madam Web is currently being talked about, or Morbius was being talked about? I've sat through Morbius. It was not good. Do I think Madam Web's going to be good? No, I didn't think it was going to be good from the beginning. Do I think The Marvels is better? Yes. Do I think The Marvels is better than Wonder Woman 1984? Yes. But does it deserve to be talked like the first Iron Man or Endgame? Not as high as those. It's a middle-of-the-road movie paid by people that really wanted to make a good movie, and possibly it got edited too much. But overall, it was a decent movie. So I don't know what people are upset about. I really don't. Okay, JD, I still have the collectibles. Do you want to do a quick break, come back and do the collectibles?
Absolutely.
Let's do that. So we'll be right back, folks.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
By this time in our journey, we had been on the trail of a very elusive creature for about 96 hours. But all the hard work is about to pay off. Oh, crikey, there she is. Oh, by the markings, I'd say this one's at least a 9.8. Oh, she's a real beauty. A true mint copy. Oh, this one will make a fine slab on anyone's display wall. Oh, she's a feisty one, though. Look out, look out!
Mint Hunter Comics is the place to find that mint comic you've been searching for. Mint Hunter Comics, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, part of the experience.
everybody, welcome back. Please hit those like buttons, the thumbs up, the stuff like that. It helps me out a lot if you do that. Also, if you tell your friends about the show, get some more people on here, this would be great. I'd love to get up where we got a good 100, 150 people every Thursday to come in and talk about comics and stuff. That would be awesome. And if you're lurking out there, please jump in the conversation. We don't bite. Okay, there's about 2 people in there that do bite, but it's only upon request. So, all right, let's get to some Captain Marvel comics. I thought it'd be good to focus on Monica Rambeau for a bit. So let's go through the Monica Rambeau key issues. All right, starting off with, I think JD's trying to remember how to do this since it's been a while.
No, someone deleted your preset, so I'm gonna have to make that up for next time.
Those bastards, how dare they? All right, let's go. Now, first appearance of Captain Marvel / Monica Rambeau. She took over the name, of course, after the Captain Marvel died. Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16 from 1982. High end on this is $50, mid is $15, low is $5. I have this somewhere. All right. Next up, Rambeau joins the Avengers. That sounds funny when you say Rambeau. Captain Marvel joins the Avengers. This was Avengers 227 from 1983. High end on this is 15, mid is 5, low is $1. Still very reasonable priced. Next up, we have Marvel Fanfare number 24 from 1986. This is when Captain Marvel, or Monica Rambeau, meets Carol Danvers for this first time. Yes, that looks like an ElfQuest story as well. High on this is only $5, mid is 2, low is 1. Solo Avengers. Did you guys know there was a Solo Avengers series? I collected all of them. And Solo Avengers number 2 had my man Hawkeye. This was the first solo story for Captain Marvel. So she'd been around for 6 years, but had never been in a story by herself. This was in 1988. High end on this is $2. High is 3, mid is 2, low is 1. Easy to pick up. If you find it, it'll be cheap. She then got her own series. This was a giant size special. Captain Marvel number 1 from 1989. First solo series. High end is 15, mid is 5, low end is $1. Then we go all the way up to 1996. Avengers Unplugged number 5, and this is where she starts doing the name changes. Here she takes on the name Photon, and I don't think she ever actually picks a name in the movie. But it's high ends of $30, mid 9, low is 3. Then we get another name change in New Thunderbolts number 9 in 2005. Seems like she can keep a name for about 10 years. Here she takes on the name Pulsar. High end on this was 30, mid is 9, low is 3. Pulsar is kind of interesting. That was a toy when I was a kid where you saw open the chest, you pressed a button, and he was a superhero, but you could see his veins pumping blood and all this stuff. And I never had one, but my father was a pressman, and he printed the boxes for the company, and he brought one home. So even though I didn't have the toy, I had the box, and I got to read the story and all the stuff on the box. But I never got Pulsar, but I had the toy. I had the box for it, and that's sad. All right, next up, she joins Next Wave, which was the Warren Ellis, Stuart Emmons series that everybody loved. Next Wave, Agents of Hate, number 1 from 2006, $65 on the high end, mid 15, low 5. This also had Elsa Bloodstone, Boom Boom, and Machine Man. I know there's somebody else, but I'm forgetting. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting group. And then we have, of course, Mighty Avengers number 1. And this, she takes the name Spectrum and joins the New Avengers with White Tiger, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, stuff like that. So high end on this is 20, mid is 8, low is 2, and this is from 2013. And then finally, the Vision number 6, which may seem like a strange comic to put up, but it's probably the most appropriate because this is from 2016. And this is the first time that Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and whatever Monica Rambeau was going as at the time, I think Spectrum, appeared in the same panel. This is the high end of 25, mid is 8, low is 2. And that is our collectibles for the week. So it's good to be back, guys. Next week, let's see, Ed says, can I ask how you're doing, Dan? You look good, so I hope you're feeling good. All right, I can answer that. From about September through Christmas, I was dealing with a lot of infections having to do with my leg injuries. And so I'd miss a week and then go back and stuff like that. But in December, the infection got into my foot and I wasn't able to stand on it. I wasn't able to put very much weight on it. So for about 6 weeks, the extent of my movement was to go from my bedroom, which is exactly next door, to the bathroom, which is right here, to the office. I mean, literally 10 feet. I wouldn't even go down the hall to the kitchen. I had people bringing me food. Christmas Day, I hobbled out and sat on a chair and directed everybody making the dinner because they were all using my recipes. I had bought all the food, but I couldn't stand up to cook. So for about 6 weeks, it got pretty bad. And the insurance kept kind of jerking me around, trying to get in for a CAT scan to figure out what it was. And finally, I just drove into the emergency room and said, let's figure this out, shall we? And I spent 5 days in there on just a batch of very strong antibiotics. And they got it under control. And I'm back up and I'm walking again. I'm still got a bit of a limp. I'm still walking around with my my walking stick just to be on the safe side. But, you know, I went to 7-Eleven today. I went to the Auto Club today. I've gone to a bunch of doctor's appointments and stuff like that. The other thing is that the actual injuries, even though I've been dealing with a ton of infection, the injuries themselves are healing faster than ever. So hopefully within the next 6 months, I might be able to stop all the doctor's visits and stuff and just go back to being normal. So that is where we're kind of looking right now. So yeah, I am doing better. I came out of the hospital with a bit of a cold. It gave me a lingering cough. So that's why I haven't been doing the show the last couple of weeks, because I couldn't talk for an hour without getting into a horrible coughing spasm. So, but I can get through this with a little bit of drink and cough drops. So, or a thing of scotch too. Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. Thank you, Eddie. It's good to be back. I missed you guys. I do enjoy doing the show and talking about these topics and stuff. We'll come up with a fun topic for next week, being that it's a leap year day. So try to come up with something appropriate. If not, then, you know, maybe we'll talk about the leapfrog or something, or we'll come up with a good topic. But for now, it's good to be back, and I am doing a lot better. So I appreciate all your concerns. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming back. Thank you all for popping in. Thank you, Triple P. It's very nice to come back and still have an audience, because I mean, it could have come back and it could have been JD and I to an empty room. So I appreciate all of you sticking around, coming back, and I am going to do my best to be here regularly every Thursday and do the news on Tuesday, and maybe do some little news breaks and stuff in between when things like the Fantastic Four get announced. So, all right, folks, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up, and I will see you all next week. Stick around for What's in the Box, and of course, Sketch Up tonight, and I will see you all later. Have a good one.